Hello, Tokyo.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome very much to the Hello Tokyo podcast, episode number 3.
Again. In residence today is Chief Principal.
You got me, Ian, and then you've got big time Dave, musician, entrepreneur, and all around good guy.
Don't know about that. And then the big Ray is sadly absent again.
He's still
on the missing list.
AWOL. Yeah, he's still AWOL, but please God, we can get him back at some point, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, work, obviously, Dave and I speak about this a lot. Working is obviously a very big part of any adult's life. And I think one of the things that brings Dave and me together as friends, because I do believe that with your friends, there's normally some sort of connection.
A common denominator.
He's very good, very good. And me and Dave both like to think of ourselves as being, well, we've always been self-employed, and I think that gene, whatever that is, that need to be self-employed, I think it comes from a need and a desire to try to be free as any human can be, who still has to work to make a living.
Yeah.
It's almost, I regard myself as like being a pirate. Not in a bad way, but like a pirate, just out there on the open seas, just trying to make a living, you know, being nice to people, making good friends.
Or by crook.
Or by crook.
Yeah. There you go. There's a little.
Just seeing where it's like, for example, if I'm playing poker, say that, I don't know, I'm in a foreign country, you know, sometimes I'm at the poker table, I shut my eyes for a second and I open them up, and I think if it wasn't for poker, if it wasn't for this need to try to be free, I wouldn't be sitting at this poker table in this casino somewhere in the world. And I think it's a very, very beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Where life can, it's almost like being a kite and you just get blown about. It's lovely.
And where you end up is where you end up landing.
Yeah.
You have to have a bit of structure.
Of course, you have to have discipline, dear listener, and you have to have a routine. I do anyway.
Yeah, not everyone does, but yeah, you to conform to it. It's not conforming. The freedom thing is not conforming, just being to drift here and there, be free what you like, but make
very good point.
Make good of it.
Yes,
you know, it's the thing.
You've got to get. It's almost like you take what God gives you and you try and do the best with it. So, for example, if you get an opportunity, a business opportunity to do something, it's nice to give it a go. And if you failed it, then you just learn another business lesson. And if it goes well, then obviously, you know, it can give you riches. But I personally have to have discipline, and I have to have a routine. I have to.
Yeah, I don't like the routine. That's for me. That's I try not to like it, but you know, we all have to have a certain amount of it within our lives.
No one's completely free.
No, but there is levels.
There is levels.
But you can be, you know, to a certain degree. No one's free unless you're totally caked with money.
Yeah.
And then you ain't got a care in the world.
No.
And then you can do whatever you like, because it doesn't matter. You ain't got to go and find your pound to put your bread on your table, pay your rent, X, Y, Z, you know. But
what I will say to that, because I've studied this quite a lot, is that even being free as we are, thank God, you know, free, and I don't mean, when we're saying free, we just mean free as in, we can just live life how we believe it should be lived, you know, and try and make our own money. There's even a price to pay for that free. There's always a price to pay.
No, it's very expensive. And freedom is expensive.
And it can be...
It's worth everything.
Yes, and you can pay for it financially, you can pay for it mentally. There's always a price to pay. And I think life is all about trying to get some sort of balance. I mean, even what Dave just said about being absolutely very, very rich, or caked, as we say, there's even a price to pay for that, because, you know, if you was to have children and you've got lots and lots of money, then you're going to have problems with your children, because you've got to then teach them responsibility and the value of a pound note. Because otherwise, if they haven't got a routine and structure, but you know their mum and dad have got a lot of money,
it's just spoiled.
They just go off the rails.
And no one they don't care.
And then you're causing even more problems for the generations to come, because if your kids ain't brought up properly, then your grandkids ain't going to be brought up properly. So it's such a, like, for example, there's a study where they do say that everything in life is like an arc. So if we start off at the bottom of the arc and we go up and we go round and we come down the other side, the perfect point is at the peak of that arc, no matter what you do in life. So, for example, if somebody's in a classroom in school, if there's not enough people say if you're really rich and you go to like a private school where there's like 10 people in the class, That can cause problems. Then as you go up the arc, you get more students. The sweet spot is about 25 students, believe it or not. And as you come down the other side of the arc, you start coming into problems where there's like 50, 60 people in a class. So there's always a sweet spot for everything in life. And what I'm trying to say is that when you've got lots and lots of money, it's just as bad as having no money in some ways, but it's almost like the problems are the opposite.
Yeah.
So the sweet spot at the top of the arc would be where you're comfortable.
I'm sure some people would say, I wouldn't mind having them problems.
Exactly.
You know.
You're exactly right.
So, you know.
It's just a different set of problems.
Yeah.
Because then you've got generations to come that you know, if your kids ain't brought up properly, you know, your grandkids who you're never ever going to meet, they're still going to have that problem. And really, it's sort of like because you was lucky enough.
Well, that's all right. I mean, because me and you ain't never going to get up to them.
No, you're right. But I still worry about that, Dave.
Yeah.
Like this, even like we say about this podcast, you know, please God, you know, a great grandchildren might find it one day
and listen to it.
Yeah.
This is history, and we're all part of it.
And I just want to say to my great grandchildren, stay in school.
Stay in school. I've got a thing. It's another little thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Oh, we talk about maybe cab driving and all that, and the knowledge and things like that in a minute. But there was when I finished my knowledge, and I got out to work, and it was like it was a realisation I had about being educated.
Yes.
Now I've been educated through the normal school. You know, I went to like everybody else did, and I left school at 11:30, and 12 o'clock I was working. And that's the way it went.
Yeah.
And then I didn't stop. This is
in the 90s?
early 80s.
Early 80s?
81, that was.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a bit old. Yeah. Anyway, so I left in the May. Last exam was half 11, it finished. 12 o'clock, I'm in the market working. Nice. Here we go, come on down. And that was it. And we carried on from there. But that was different days, and we bring it forward into the modern days. It ain't like that anymore, and them opportunities to be just an oik on the street and make a living ain't so readily available. I don't think so for the modern kids, the modern youth.
It's almost impossible.
When I finished my knowledge, and I started going to work as a cab driver, and we started, you know, it was new and fresh to me, and we was, you know, sitting out there for some hours and seeing what we could do. And we started earning some money, and was like, oh, this is nice. Yes. This is all right. Before we were just working in the market world, and it wasn't great, but you know, we lived, we paid the bills, we ate some food, and that was it. There was no gravy.
Yes.
But with the cab, we've noticed a little bit of gravy coming, and we was like, oh, this is lovely. So we have bettered ourselves. Yeah. But the realisation came is that especially when you start meeting other people on the road in the back of your cab, you know, gentry and fancy people and normal people too.
Yeah.
But you realise that all these people, you know, are top of the trees. They've all got loads of dough, and they're all lardy-dough and doing all this crazy stuff. And you're just off the street geezer. Yeah. But to get anywhere, you have to have a little bit of education.
Yes.
And so this was the lesson for the day, boys and girls. You know, you don't really succeed. I don't think so these days. In my day, you could, right? I succeeded. I left school, and I just went straight to work.
Yeah.
Now, kids these days, they've got to have, have you got any degrees or qualifications in X, Y, Z, whatever it is. If not, you know, it's like...
clip round the ear on.
See you later. Go away. Don't come back. And there's so much competition for the jobs, you know, there's lots of, instead of there's 10 blokes going for a job, there's 100 blokes going for a job.
Literally 100,
Yeah. And so my lesson was, you've got to be a little bit educated to get up to the next step. So stay in school, kids, is what Ian's always says.
Always say stay in school.
Stay in school and get your head down a little bit. Yeah. But when you're young, you don't realise that. And I didn't realise that when I was young. No. So, you know, you just want to get out, get some money in your pocket, and whoa, here we go, I've got a little job. And we was happy with that, and that's cool, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But the opportunities for that these days
are less and less.
Very much less.
Bureaucracy, red tape.
Yeah, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and health and safety this, and health and safety that. You know,
the opportunities are going.
Yeah, when we was kids,
there was opportunities.
We all got a job easy, you know. Pull down the market, hello, Mister. All right, get in that lorry, unload that lorry for me, boy. And you get a couple of quid, and you was happy, you know. Yeah. And everyone was happy, you know.
It was a different generation, different culture,
different world, different culture. Yes.
So when Dave and I talk about the thing called the knowledge, for all the people that don't know, it is like a thing that is very traditional in London. So the knowledge is what we say, getting the knowledge of all the streets and all the buildings in London. So you can become a black cab driver. Now, people get confused because a black cab isn't always black, but traditionally the cabs were black. And that's why we still say today, we don't
Black
just
cab
say,
driving,
we say black cab rather than just cab. And it's we spoke about this briefly on the first episode. There's so much prestige linked to that. It's part of London culture. When you think of London, you think of a red bus, you think of a black cab. And it goes back hundreds of years where it's very, very strict, where you have to really get your head down. And normally people do it on like a little scooter, motorbike, so they can get up and down all the streets in London. They can turn around. You literally have to learn how many streets, Dave?
Thousands and thousands and thousands.
I think it's up to. I'm going to say now that by the time you finish, without knowing it, you could be up to 50,000.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say as well, dear listener, I'm going to say they say 12,000 buildings, but I think it's more like 20,000.
It's about 20,000. I'm sure it was when I finished.
And you have to know and what it is. If you know the history of that building, it helps you remember. You have to remember where it is. You have to remember what's in there. So, for example, if somebody wants a certain association, then you know where to take them, because they might get in the back of your black cab and say, take me to so-and-so, or to like a special club. They might want to go to the FA, for example, like to do with football. You have to know where it is, because not always the punters know what street that building is on, so it's your job. You also have to know which direction the building is facing, if it's on a one-way street or two-way street. So the magical thing about the knowledge is that once you start learning, it opens up your brain, and it's it's like being like a 10-year-old or even younger. Like, say, for example, when you're in school and you're learning all these wonderful things in school, when you're an adult and you do the knowledge, because I was a teacher of the knowledge, and it was my job to open up the students' minds to try to get them to almost be like a kid again, where their brain is like a sponge. And it's probably easier, or it's just as easy to learn 50,000 streets than it is to learn 30,000, because what happens is your brain naturally opens up and you start taking in roads that you don't even know that you're taking in, and your brain, it's like a massive puzzle. And when you look at the map of London, rather than going from, say, you know where Bethnal Green is, or you know where Rotherhithe is, there's like two separate villages. As you learn the knowledge, and I'm sure Dave will agree, that you learn all these little different villages, and they slowly come into focus, and you realise how linked they are. And before you know it, London becomes one massive village.
Yeah, it's like when you start, in the Blue Book it says about the dumbbell effect, which is what Knowledge Point School used to preach and teach. You start in one area, and then you do that little quarter of a mile around that little point where you started, and you get to the end of the next line, which is a set of streets, the routes, and then you do the next dumbbell area, and by the time you've done the whole book, they're all kind of smudged over and linked up.
Amazing.
So you've got an idea of how they all connect and link, and it works. It's a long process. It takes years to do.
What's the average, Dave?
I would say, well, I don't these days. I don't know if anybody's still got
no,
it. But
in our day,
in my day, I would say the average would have been 4. I did 4.5 years.
4.5 years, and that's hard, solid work every day.
Every day you've got to be on it. Yeah, so that's what the knowledge is. It's a tough thing.
It is tough, mentally, tough. Physically, financially,
every way. Yeah.
You're out there in all weathers on your scooter.
You're not going out with your friends drinking down the pub.
No.
You're out there on your scooter learning. Yep. And if you're not on the scooter, then you're calling over, revising your Blue Book, which is the list of runs that we get in the beginning.
Yeah.
And revising what you've learnt that day.
Yeah.
And marking it all up on your map. Writing it all down, your points, as you leave, mate, blah, blah, blah.
Would you say, Dave, that when you've done your knowledge, would you say that was there a eureka moment where suddenly you could see the map, or was it a gradual thing?
It's a funny thing that you don't realise. When I used to call over, which is revising, and you do that with a partner. Yeah. When I used to call over, I used to draw with a pencil or a pen on a blank piece of paper, and as I'm visualising the route I'm going to take, I'm calling it out to the other person who's testing me. I used to draw on with a piece of paper, and there was, if you look at by the end, halfway through, you're getting better at it, and as you go, and then you're getting better at it. But I had to draw it, I have the pencil in my hand and
Yes.
draw it while I'm calling the run, just thinking of it on a
Yeah.
blank piece of paper. And then when you put the line on the map,
Yes.
the other person has just drawn on the map the line you've taken,
It matches.
then you put
Yeah.
my one on,
Perfect.
and it
It's amazing.
more or less matches, and you go,
Yeah.
oh, it's going in.
Yes,
it's
it
starting
is
to
going
work.
in. Because if you can draw it, Dave, then you know it.
Then the other problem for me came, my call-over partner, the guy I was doing the knowledge with, he said, well, you can't take a piece of paper and a pen into your appearance, into your exams. Maybe we'll talk about that as well. That's another part of the knowledge we can talk about.
Yeah.
I went, oh, right, okay. So I used to draw it with my hands in
Yes.
my head.
I remember, yeah.
You know, I used to draw it like I'm going left, right, and I could see, so
Yeah.
I could see a picture.
Yes.
And that's the way, if I couldn't see it,
Yeah.
and so there is areas in London, I had to go back, like, I did a whole week in one little area of Hackney.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see it. I couldn't
Yeah.
see it in my head. I
Yeah.
had to see it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to there's another thing, I'll just quickly dive down a rabbit hole. I was listening to a thing on the radio last night, they were talking about autism.
Yes.
And how people, they have to see it.
Yes.
Certain
Yeah.
behaviours of autistic
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Some of them have to see it, and I was like, wow, okay. And it was resonating with me what the guy was talking about on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't see it, then that was the same as me. I
have
couldn't
to
see
see
that
it.
area.
Yeah.
5 days, every
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
I'm back in Hackney, Valentine Road,
yeah.
Keswick Road. Oh, mate, you know, Catch Lane Road, and I'm up there all the time.
Yeah.
Until I could see
Tough
it,
areas.
and then I could call through it. Did you ever get a point up there?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, exactly. So, but do you think, is that mental, or is it and just because it's a very tough area to learn?
It was just me. I just couldn't. Some areas, there was other areas I just couldn't see. So you had to work double hard on those.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't click in. You'd get asked a question there, and I was like, no, I can't call. You can't
Yeah.
move through it.
No.
So I kept going back until I got it, and then I was happy with that. And then I carried on.
Yeah.
But it took me a week just to do that little area.
It is very interesting because at the end of the day, this is what I used to say to people who I used to teach. Every road in London, the good news is it's never ever going to move. It's a bit of black tarmac is going to be a bit of black tarmac forever. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's so many of these bits of black tarmac, up to, like we say, 50,000. So I used to try and just imagine that it's just like a black bit of tarmac with a street sign at the end. That's all it is. And if you can learn one road, then you can learn 2. And if you can learn 2, you can learn 10. And if you can learn 10,
at the very
it
beginning.
is very daunting.
Especially when you go for your first talk at the carriage office.
Yeah.
And they say, look at the map, okay, all of that, you got to learn all that. And you look at it, you go, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
And then if you think about, like Ian says, about all the different thousands and thousands of streets and places and all of that that's going on, you think about how many songs do you know? This is how I did
Yes.
it in my head. How many songs do you know? So you turn the radio on and you're driving along and you sing along
Yeah.
to the song.
Yeah.
You don't know that song, but you sing along to it, so you know it. So it's in there.
It's in there.
It's stored in there somewhere, and you can do that all day long on the radio. You sing along to a song.
Yeah.
And you think, well, how many songs do I actually know? And if you wrote them all
Amazing.
down,
It's amazing.
you'd be amazed.
You'd be amazed.
So it's the same thing. I thought, well, if that happens, then
Yeah.
obviously, you know, I can do this. But
Yeah.
it's 1 foot at a time.
So the way I see it is this: it's like a marathon. Anyone can, like I say, anyone can run 10 steps, and if you can run 10 steps with enough practice, you can run 1,000 steps. It's the same process running 1 step than it is 1,000, but obviously you just need that fitness and that positive attitude. And it's the same with learning these streets. It is daunting. And if you knew exactly what you was getting yourself into at the beginning of the knowledge, most people wouldn't
do it.
They wouldn't do it. So the maps that all knowledge schools use and all knowledge people use, like knowledge students, is 4 foot by 3 foot. So in meters, Dave, that's going to be up.
1 and a bit by 1.
Yeah, 1 and a bit by 1 metre. And there's literally like all these thousands of streets on this map of London. The centre of London is Trafalgar Square. And if you can imagine, the rest of the map just flows outwards until you get to the barriers and the boundaries of where you need to know. Now, the good news about that is that once you learn all them 50,000 roads, you then have to take about a month to 5 or 6 weeks learning a skeleton of what we call the suburbs.
And that takes you out to the airport and Northwood
Yes.
and Harrow
Yeah.
and Crayford.
Yeah, all the really far out places, amazing places. And considering that I used to teach the knowledge, this is the amazing thing, that if you showed me a map of London with all the tube stations there would still be at least 50 tube stations on that map I've never even heard of. And when you consider that I made my living for years by owning a college that taught the knowledge, there's still parts of London that I haven't even ever heard of. And that shows you how big London is.
Suburb ones,
London is a
nuts.
monster.
I know,
It's a monster.
a big gaff.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest cities in the world. We've got like 9-10 million people.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then around London, you've got a big orbital motorway called the M25. And it just, looking at it, it's mind-blowing how big. It's a great city. It's absolutely huge. What about the actual appearances, Dave? Let's talk about that.
Okay, appearance. Well, this is examination time.
This is the scary time.
Yeah, this is when it starts.
Yes.
They say this is when your knowledge starts.
It is.
Yeah, where you get to a point where you've done all your books and you think you're getting all right, and then you go to the carriage office and say, "Oh, can I have a map test, please?"
Yes, please.
And then they say, "Yes, okay." So then you go and do a map test, and they give you 10. I think it was 10 when I did
Yes,
it. It was 10 blank maps, just maps.
Yeah.
Blank, no writing on them.
Yeah.
And you might just get in the corner of the page. You might just get, I don't know, one little tiny street.
Yeah.
And so from that, they would give you a list of, I think it was 10 streets and points.
Yeah.
Points are like places of interest, a post office or a building or a library, something, anything, a pub, club, whatever it might be. And they will give you 10, and you had to plot them on the map. So you have to fill in the streets and put in and draw on this map, and you get 10 of those. Then you had to write out 10, I think, blue book runs.
Yes.
I think it was just straight blue book runs.
Yeah.
And then that's that. And I'm pretty sure, I can't remember properly, but that's more or less it.
Yeah.
That was your map test. And if you pass that, then you go on to what we call appearances.
And this is the scary bit.
So the appearance is the one-to-one examination with an examiner.
Yes.
And these examiners are like, and it's so, start with that, this is like the scary part.
It really is scary.
And you don't realise, people outside of the game, I don't think will ever realise the pressure and the stress. So you go in, once if you've passed your map test, they give you a date for your first appearance, and you must appear before them with your librarian haircut, your suit, your tie, and shaved, and shiny shoes, and yes sir, no sir, free bags full sir. It's kind of military, isn't it?
Because I like a routine and I like structure and discipline. I like that about the knowledge.
No, it's very good. You all have to be, suited up. If your tie was crooked, bing, out the door you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not kicked out, but you look down upon, say that.
Yeah.
So you go in, and then you go into the waiting room. Once you walk in the carriage office, you give the lady or the person behind the counter your card, and they'll book you in. Okay, go and sit in the waiting room, please. So you sit in the waiting room, and the waiting room was full of, usually when I was there wasn't very many women.
Yeah.
There was some, but not as many as there was blokes, men. And there's these big geezers, right, proper, some of them big geezers, sitting there in that chair, shaking.
Yeah, literally.
Like, seriously shaking.
Yeah.
Legs shaking, arms shaking.
With fear.
Of the examiners. And the examiner's, all he's going to do is ask you questions. That's all he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's not going to beat you up or nothing. But he's
in my day, dear listener, there was some sort of violence. They might pick up something and throw it at you.
Oh, yeah, but that's... I'm not talking about serious violence.
Yeah.
I'm talking, no fire extinguishers were used.
No. No knowledge boy was harmed during the recording of this podcast.
That's right, exactly right. Yeah. So then you go in there, and then you go into like the walk, the walk. Remember the walk?
I do, Dave.
The examiner will come into the waiting room and call a name, whoever's name it was.
Yes.
And then the examiner will walk out, and you have to follow the examiner up the hallway of death.
Yes.
So you walk down the hallway following the examiner. Please follow me, says the examiner.
The door might slam in your face, things like that.
Yeah, and you have to open the door, walk through, stay calm, and still trying to remember all this stuff you just try to learn.
Yes.
And then you come in the office, sit down, please, and there's one chair in the middle of the room.
Yeah, sometimes it's in a weird position.
Yeah, it's like the executioner's chair,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
You sit on this little chair in the middle of the room, and he sits behind the desk on the other side of the room. And he might not even just got your card, you give him your appointment card, and he'll take that and write something on it.
Yeah.
And then he'll say, okay, he might not even look at you.
Yes.
Do you know Buckingham Palace?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And you tell him where it is.
Yeah.
And then please take me to Brixton Prison.
Oh, yes, good one. Good one.
Yeah. So, and then you'd have to call the run.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there trying to remember, it's left, right,
Yeah.
left, right, left, right. And then you're calling every street,
Yeah.
every turn,
Leave on the
every
left,
roundabout,
yeah,
leave
yeah.
on the left,
Wow.
comply the roundabout, leave
Yeah.
by.
Yeah.
And then until you get and sit down on the left, sir.
Yes.
And it's sir
Yeah.
to the men examiners, and mum
Yeah.
to the women examiners. And and they might not look at you. They might not even say another word. They might just say, take me from...
Yeah. Yeah.
Southwark Council, please, to
Yes.
the War Museum, please.
Yeah.
And then you'd call it.
And that is the fear. It's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and you don't know how you're doing. You're sitting there trying to remember everything, and not forget a road, not forget a turn, not go down a one-way street, and all of that. Anyway, goes on, and you get to the end of the appearance. Usually it's 4 to 5 questions, wasn't it?
Yes.
And as an average, lasts about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Not long. But
Not long.
It was like an eternity.
But it was like, it was an eternity, yeah. And then at the end of the appearance, the examiner will say, usually say, okay, not bad, well done.
Yeah.
And he'll give you a mark on your card,
Yes.
a score mark. And if you got C, that was okay, you got
passed.
through.
Yeah.
C, B or A. B and A's are quite strong, you
Yeah.
don't really get them.
No.
C's are average, everyone gets a C. But if you got a D, that means you didn't score and you've got to start again.
You got to go again.
And then this keeps going and going and going until every 56 days you appear. And then once you amass 12 points on your scorecard, then you get down to the next stage, 28 days. And every month you're up there.
Yes.
Now, if you get through that stage, there's 21. Then after that, it's 21 days. Every 21 days you'll be. By that time, you should be on the money. You should be.
Yeah, 21s is level 5, and there's only 6 levels on the knowledge.
Yeah, so you should be bashing out those runs and calling like a demon.
Like
by
a
the time
demon,
you get there, yeah. And so when you get to there, they sort of, I suppose they know that you're doing all right. You don't want to miss that one up, the 21, because that's you only got 4. If you can get 4 C's.
Yeah.
4 lots of 3 weeks, and you could be out in the suburbs,
Yeah, so dear listener, you need 12 points to go from 56s to 28s and 28s to 21s. An A is 6 points, a B is 4 points, and a C is 3 points. So if you just go for C's all the time, then it's going to be 4 C's, 4 appearances, please God. Once you pass level 5, which is 21, like Dave says, you get what you call a rec, which means you've reached the recommended standard of the map of London. And then you go on to what we call the suburbs, which is what I spoke about. Level 6, learn the suburbs. Please God, you do that.
Oh, I hated it.
And then you go up there, Dave, and you get, please God.
When you go up there, right. So when I did it,
yes,
which is a good few years ago now.
Yeah.
Suburbs, yeah. So you go out and you don't do it on a bike, it's too long.
It's over 1,000 miles.
Yeah, it's a lot. You've got to do it in a car, really.
Yeah.
Airport. All far out of the way places. A lot of these places you've never heard of, never been. Like Northwood. I've never been there before in my life. Anyway, and you have to learn these runs, all these lines, all the way out there. There's 55 lines just coming out the airport.
Yes.
In and out the airport.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yes.
But, we had to learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then we go for our last appearance, which hopefully, if you're lucky, is your badge day, if you're lucky. So you go in out, and then I walked in to my one, and take me from Heathrow Terminal 1 to, Northwood. Okay, so and you call the run.
Yeah.
And then I got to like 4 or 5 lines I've done.
And you're thinking it should be over.
It should be over now. And he kept going, the examiner. I went, oh, mate, don't do that to me.
Yeah, you're killing me. Yeah.
And he kept going, give me about 10 lines.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I was like, this is, anyway, I was like, and then he stops, closes the book, and he stands up. He says, well done, sir, to me.
So he called you... This is a big thing. Once they call you sir, you've been accepted into the brotherhood.
Yeah, and you're on the same level as... Well, not the same levels then, but you're, up with them.
They will shake your hand.
And he shook my hand,
Yeah, they would never shake your hand before that.
No.
But once you get that badge...
And he says, congratulations, sir, you've passed the knowledge. And I went, thank you, sir, and I shook his hand.
It's a massive thing.
And that was massive. That's like the weight off your shoulders, and you become... sort of light and euphoric in your being.
Yes,
you are light.
Feeling.
And then they say to you, can you come back in an hour's time, go and get yourself a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. And then you go out smiling, skipping down the stairs, go over to the cafe with the Star Cafe across the road.
Star Cafe, yeah.
Get yourself a cup of tea, and then 12, it was about an hour later it was, you go in for your presentation.
Yes.
And you get given your badge. They give you a chat. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, beautiful.
Give you the badge, and then they give you, a chat about cab driving.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been out in a cab before,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
out you go. And then you leave the carriage office and go and get yourself a cab. Try and go to work.
Then start pushing a cab around London.
Yeah.
They do say, and this comes from a Cambridge graduate who looked into the knowledge. Because when I had the school, I was very lucky that we might have been on the BBC. Different journalists from around the world would come to the school, because basically people from all around the world are fascinated with London, and they're fascinated with the black cab and the knowledge.
It's because of the training we have to do.
Yes, it's the best in the world. And this Cambridge graduate said to me that doing the knowledge is like doing back-to-back degrees at Cambridge University.
Wow.
Back-to-back. That's how hard it is. And there's a part of your brain around the back that holds all the information, called the hippocampus.
And it grows and swells.
It grows. A black cab driver's brain will have like a lump in the back of it where the hippocampus actually grows, and it's just full up with information.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like the hard drive on a computer. It is amazing. And then suddenly, the strange thing about it is that you're with your knowledge mates all day, every day for like 3, 4, 5 years. And then suddenly, you're on your own, driving a cab.
You got some bloke asking you, can I go to Hesper Muse, please? Where's that, mate? Hesper Muse?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But it is like a magic trick. There's a lot of romance in my eyes, and I'm sure, Dave, that there's still a romance to do with the knowledge. It's like a magic trick, because you can get it. Imagine this. Imagine being a little kid. You're in London with your mum for the day, and she hails this black cab who you've never seen before as a kid. Door opens, you get in, and there's a man in the front, and your mum says, take me to so-and-so, and this man in the front knows exactly where it is and how to get there.
And he's going to get you there, yeah.
It is a magic trick. It's like an illusion, and it's a beautiful, beautiful illusion. There is, because I used to teach the knowledge, there's obviously tricks, and there's tricks of the trade that I can't really say now. But with anything in life, when it's as complex as learning 50,000 streets, there's always a theory that you can break these things down into smaller problems, and then you can learn. I'm not going to say it's like being a doctor, but imagine you go to your GP. He's looking at you, say you've got like a bad elbow. His brain then goes on to broken elbows. Your doctor forgets about every other part of your body, and your doctor just then gets all the information in his own brain about elbows, and then just concentrates on that. But when you go to your doctors, you think, he's like magic, the same as being a black cab driver in a way.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Although doctor saves lives. So it's just an illusion, but it is a magic thing.
Anyone can do it, but you've got to be wanting to do it.
I would say, what's the dropout rate, Dave?
When I was doing it, they said the dropout rate was, I think, 70%.
Wow.
So 100 men start, 30 men finish.
Yeah.
The good thing about your school, though, was... What was the dropout rate there? Was it 1?
Probably 1, yeah, because I would only take people that was disciplined and dedicated. I believe in hard work. I really do. There's no shortcuts.
No, there's no shortcuts to it. If you're going to do it, it's like Mr. Burgess says.
Yeah.
You've got to do the thing, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
And there's no easy way around it.
No.
You just got to get out there and do it.
Then
you've got to eat it and sleep it.
But I like that. I love that. I love the beauty of that. Anyone can do it, like you say, but you have to do it.
You have to apply yourself, and it does take over your life.
It has to.
When you're doing it, it does break you, yeah.
Yeah, it has to break. And it's like being in the army. It's like when for the army, they break you. They have to break you to build you up.
To mould you into that.
Yes, and it's the same. It is the same, because you're taking people around arguably the best city in the world. You're representing London. There's obviously lots and lots of different people from all around the world on business in London, tourists, and you're the first line of contact. Say if you're at the airport, you need to represent London, and you need to be polite. And what I used to say this to all my knowledge boys who I taught, the most important thing that you can do to be a black cab driver, you have to be humble.
Yeah.
That's all I used to say. And that's something that I've taken on myself. Humbleness should come first. So I'm pleased that I've done it. But when I look back at it, Dave, the knowledge, it was almost like I had a brother who'd done it, because I can't really remember it.
It's a funny thing, right? When you're in it, doing it, then 4.5 years you're out there doing it,
yeah,
before you get out.
Yeah.
you don't think of anything else. You're just doing it. It's knowledge. It's
Yeah.
knowledge. It's knowledge. It's going out on your bike. It's
Yeah.
going up to school. It's
Yeah.
calling over. It's doing this, doing that. And, you know, in between them times, you're trying to make a living to feed yourself.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it, you're doing it. And then when you get out and it's finished,
It's weird.
and when they, like you say, you know, thank you, sir,
Yeah.
congratulations, you've passed.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
what do I do now?
What
then?
do I do now?
And what was all that about?
Yeah.
What was all that last
Like,
4
was
years
that
about?
real? Was that real? Did that really happen?
Yeah. And it's kind of strange. It's weird, isn't it? It's a weird sort of feeling.
There's always a connection between you and the knowledge people that you've done it with. It is like being in the army. It's almost like you've been into, like, in some ways, it's like you've been into a war zone, and your brain sort of tries to figure. I can't remember it, Dave. I can only remember certain things about. I can remember going up and learning the knowledge, but actual small instances, I can't really. I can only remember a few.
Yeah, I can a few instances. Laughs we had.
I've had some
I could
good
tell you
laughs.
about
Yes.
El Til.
Yes.
So tell that story?
Yes. Tell it. It's funny.
This is a funny story. Now, I said about the strictness of the carriage office. Very strict up there. You don't say a word out of place. You don't, you know, you wear your tie and your shirt and your jacket. Anyway, one day I'm up there, and another guy from our school was up there as a friend of ours, was up there at the same time. He was having an appearance. And there was two actually other guys. There was three of us from our school up there at the same time, more or less. So I booked in, and I went into the waiting room. And then the examiners called me. I've gone in for my appearance. And as I've come out, one of the guys is sitting by the door. Oh, hello, Dave. Oh, hello, mate. And I couldn't really talk because the examiner was behind me. So I've gone and booked for my next appointment. And I've come back into the waiting room to get my coat and talk to this other fella.
Yeah.
So, hello, mate. How you doing? Yeah. Hey, Jeff. I've had this fella. Yeah. Did I score? Yeah, he scored me. Yeah, it was a good day today. Okay. Then he gets called. He goes in. I said, where's the other person? He said, he's in the toilet.
He's in the cars here.
In the Kazi, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the toilet. I went, all right, okay.
This is cruel, but it's funny.
It is cruel and it's funny. He did see the funny side after trying to whack me, but he was, so I get my coat on and I go across the hallway into the toilet, open the door, and I call out his name. We'll call him Mr. Smith,
Yes.
just to
Yes.
keep him anonymous.
Yeah.
You know who he is. If you ever listen to
Yes,
this,
yes.
you know who you are.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, like that, 'cause that's how they used to call you. You know?
Mr. Smith, please.
Mr. Smith, please, like that.
Yeah.
And he comes charging out of the stall, out of the toilet, pulling his trousers up. You. And he's like, he thought I was the examiner. I was calling him.
That's funny.
That was funny. He left a load in the Kazi.
Yeah. But it's the what it is. It's the unknown. So this is the thing I wanted to say. Is that even if you go in there and you do a perfect exam with the examiner, you take him or her on 4 or 5 runs perfectly, they can still not score you.
Yeah.
And this is the element of the knowledge that I found so scary, because they've got the power in their hands of whether or not you're ever going to get a green badge. And, you know, to get the green badge is the thing that you wear at the end of the knowledge when you're a cab driver. But it's the unknown that you can try your best, be perfect. And if they don't want to score you, they won't score you. And the reason they might not score you is because they have to test your personality to see how you react. Because don't forget that, you know, if you're going to pass, you're going to be taking people from all around the world, around London, like I say, and you cannot afford to get angry with any customers.
No, you've got to be they test this out.
Yeah.
And one of my appearances, I didn't realise he was doing it at the time, but when you hear the stories and come out from it, you sort of realise, oh, he was having a go at me on purpose to test me.
Yeah.
And he shouted at me, he banged the table with his hand, shouted at me, don't lie to me. He asked me a point, Page Street it was.
Yes.
Page Street. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, sir, I can't see that, sir. Bang goes down the table, big bang noise. Don't lie to me, he shouted across the table. And I was like, I'm sorry, sir.
Yes,
I'm just not quite seeing that one, sir.
Yeah.
Please give me a second.
Yes.
And, you know, if you said, what are you talking to me like that for? He would have kicked you out straight away and you would have been off the knowledge. He's testing your temperament, how you react to
they have to.
certain things. And they do it in certain ways.
Yeah.
He might sit there tapping the pencil on the desk while you're calling.
Yeah, or he might be on the phone.
Just bang, looking out the window. He's sitting there looking out the window. You're calling, trying your best to impress him, and he's just looking out the window.
Yeah, on purpose.
On purpose.
Very clever.
But it's there to test you, to test you as a person, to see how you react. Because, like Ian says, if you react badly with a customer, remember the public.
You're representing London.
You're representing the cab trade and London,
Yeah.
and they're going to look very down upon you for doing that sort of thing, and you will be out the window straight away.
I remember in Penton Street, which is where the carriage office used to be, there was one room with like a concrete pillar in it from the ceiling to the floor. And one examiner, because a lot of the examiners would play characters like good cop, bad cop. And one of the examiners was notorious for putting the chair where you sat behind the pillar, right? So, and you can't move it. So you might have a whole appearance where
You sit looking at the pillar.
you're literally 5 inches away from a concrete post, a pillar, and he's asking you questions, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's
done for a reason.
It's done for a reason. It's very, very clever. One of my call-over partners, because he didn't know the point, he like the building, he still scored, but the examiner walked down out of the building with him and walks down Penton Street,
Oh, wow.
saying to him, "How comes you didn't know that point?" And my call-up partner had his wife with him. She was waiting outside. And he's saying to his wife, "I don't know what to do." And this examiner is walking down the street with him saying, "I can't believe I get up early and find the points. How comes you don't?" And his wife is going, "What is going on?" That is the madness that they took it to.
Yeah, it was a crazy thing.
Eccentric.
Yeah.
But I quite like that.
No, that's the beauty of it.
There is a beauty.
Eccentric.
There is a beauty
kind
in
of
that.
A bit
Yeah.
regimental.
Yeah.
It is kind of like yes sir, no sir, and
Yeah.
it is kind of like the examiners will twist and
Yeah.
turn you around and try and get in your head. The same examiner who
Yeah.
slammed the table.
Yeah.
He got inside my head one
Yeah.
appearance.
Yeah.
As Mr. Swire, sadly, he's not with us
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
He was a tough examiner.
Yeah.
But he got inside my head and he was trying to twist me around all over the place, and I was like, oh, my head was on fire when I finished the appearance. And he stopped and he goes, "All right,
Yeah.
stop now."
Yeah.
I went, "All right, sir."
Yes.
And he's like, "Okay, well
Yeah.
done, thank you."
Yeah.
And he gave him a card and he scored me.
Good.
But he was trying to twist my brain
To see whether
to see how I react again.
You passed because you handled it perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that. It's quite nice for me because like when I'm in London, say I'm scooting around London and I might be like, I don't know, buying and selling watches. I do get black cabs now, and it's quite nice for me, especially if one of my old students picks me up. And it's nice for me because, like I did sort of like think about lots of theories about how to learn all the streets, and it's nice for me when an old student might say a bit of theory that I might have forgotten because it's been so many years, but it brings it all back. So for me, it's very rewarding to be able to teach somebody something to give them employment, really.
Yeah, no, it's a way of life,
Beautiful.
isn't it?
It's beautiful. There's a certain beauty in that. And
great.
you're always going to be known as a black cab driver. So even like, I don't drive a cab anymore. I haven't even got a badge anymore. Well, I kept my badge. I kept my green badge. Obviously, I can't use it. But it's like a medal, Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's an important part of your life. Once you get that little piece of green metal around your neck, you're like, oh, that represents like, 4.5 years for me, but as an average, 4 years of solid hard work, and
Definitely.
it is hard because everything else goes out the window.
Everything else comes second.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. You have to hit it with such a punch and a passion.
Yes.
And that's what I was saying about you must be to earn anything. Oh, you've done your work, and you have to go to get a little bit more educated.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from at the beginning. What I was saying
Yeah.
about. I had a realisation you have to do something else. Like a doctor goes to college for 10 years to become a doctor, or a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you only get to these sort of jobs. These are the guys I'm picking up in my cab, lawyers. You know, they come out the law courts.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, oh, take me here, please.
Yeah.
And then they're not blinking an eyelid at a £25 fare. And
Yeah.
you think, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
Bloody-
yeah.
And he didn't blink an eyelid.
No.
And you think, these people don't care.
No.
That money's not important to them
Yeah.
because they can afford that money. That's what they're used to.
Yeah.
And they're educated and got in such a high,
Yes.
level of work.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying, with the kid thing earlier. Stay in school, kids.
You have to stay in school.
And then you have to be slightly educated to get anywhere, to get a job that's going to feed you nicely.
Yes.
Rather than just being bread and water.
Yes.
I'm not saying there isn't any jobs on the street anymore, but my time when I started, it was easier.
Yeah. I think.
Excuse me.
I think with me, the knowledge has taught me things that have stayed with me. For example, when you do walk into the office with the examiner, there was 3 things you have to do. You have to shut the door, give him or her your card, and then you sit down.
All in that order.
And it's really nerve-wracking just to remember them three things, believe it or not. So, like, if I'm now with anybody and we're together and we're in a room, I will never sit down before the other person sits down. So being on the knowledge has taught me that discipline to show a bit of respect and politeness by not sitting down until the other person that you're with sits down. Like with if I ever go and see my doctor, I'm the same, and he looks at me like I'm crazy. I say, "Oh, sorry, it's just, I was just waiting for you to sit down." But I think that's nice, Dave. It's nice to have that discipline.
Yeah, it's a nice thing.
Showing respect.
It's respect. Yeah, it's what it is. You have to become that way. You have to learn these little things to be a cab driver.
Yeah.
You can't be some oiky Herbert.
It's more than just being it, because
no, it's not just learning streets.
No, it isn't
They're
just
moulding you.
No, it's almost like a vocation.
It is.
You know, like I remember being back in school when I was a kid, and you know, the kid with the most sweets, his dad would be the cab driver because they would always have cash, and their kids would always be the kings of the playground in school.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's like, unless you're from London, it's difficult to understand the prestige that comes from having a dad or a mum who's a black cab driver.
Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it, Dave?
It was, yeah. These days,
it is dying. I would like, like
watered down a little bit.
Yes, it's like anything; it's dying, and in some ways that glorifies it, maybe even a little bit more. But me and Dave was very lucky that we just caught the tail end of the good times in the cab, and then obviously the world is changing. It's still a good job. You can still.
It's still a good job, and it's a freedom, as we were speaking earlier about freedom.
Yes.
No one tells you when to work. You work when you want to work.
Yeah.
That's freedom. That's freedom. You know, as long as you've got a couple of quid in your pocket, you can afford to pay your rent and pay your food bill and your gas bill, electric bill. Not easy these days. What's coming, I don't think, but we'll see.
It's about, as a working person, a working man, a working woman, being a black cab driver is about the most self-employed that you can get, because even though you're carrying people in the cab, you're only carrying them around for
20 minutes, the tops.
20 minutes, because it's in and out. So even though you've got someone paying your wages, you're the most self-employed that you could probably ever get.
Yeah, just you and a set of keys, isn't it?
As a working person.
Go out in the morning with your keys, turn the key in the cab, and away you go to work. Turn the light on.
It's still, being a black cab driver is still called the best kept secret in London, because you're literally driving around a money box, and you know, unless you're involved in the cab game, you don't really know a lot about it. Again, it's like being a magician. It's like the magic circle. There is a certain amount of mystique, so it is still quite a big secret. Lots of people, everyone knows what a black cab is, but not many people think, "Oh, I want to do that." So it's still very mysterious, and it's still quite a big secret how much you could earn.
No one knows.
No one knows, Dave.
No one knows.
No. That's another part of the magic trick.
Yeah.
But, it is magical. I'm pleased I've done it, but it did take a lot out of me.
Yeah, it does take a lot out of you.
Emotionally, physically.
Anything worth...
Yes.
Anything worth
it's like climbing a mountain, isn't it?
It's the same thing as what I call blowing up the Death Star.
Yes.
Luke Skywalker blew up the Death Star.
Yeah.
I've done the knowledge.
Brilliant.
You know, we had to climb that mountain. Some ancient explorer guy had to climb up Everest, you know, just to say he'd done it, just to get there.
When they say, why'd you do it? You say, well, why not? And I like that.
I always wanted to do it since I was a little kid. I don't know why. Like you say about the kid getting in a cab with his mum, you know, this is cool. I like this. Something about, there is the freedom thing there. So you are a free man.
You're like a pirate.
Yeah, you can just run around the open seas. And when you've had enough, just turn your light off and go home.
Yeah.
As long as you're going to afford to pay your rent, everyone's happy.
And this is what Dave and I were saying at the beginning about freedom. We have to work. We're working people, and you know, I hope that we will always want to work. We work for ourselves, and it's interesting that a lot of my friends are self-employed, and I'm sure that's the same with Dave. A lot of your friends are. I think maybe there's a gene inside us, a part of our DNA, where we just want to try and live life
on our terms,
as much as possible.
Yeah, as much as we can legally. We can
by helping people, being humble.
Yeah,
but just doing your own thing. And there's a certain romance. I feel like a cowboy on his horse, doing his own thing, and I love that. I really do like that. You know, it's nice to say to somebody, "Well, I haven't got a boss. I've never had a boss. You know, I just try and live life the way I think it should be lived."
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
There is a total mind freedom for that as well. It's good free your mind. It's very good.
It's good for yourself. Any more final thoughts, Dave?
Final thoughts is regarding knowledge or just in general?
Whatever you want, my friend.
Okay. No, I'm done.
think
That's it.
yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that, people.
Yeah, and
And,
we look forward to episode number 4. I don't know what to say. I want to know what I can say. It's just come to me. I've never said it before, but to all the kids out there, stay in school.
Stay in school. Be lucky, people.
Thank you. Bye bye.
That's good, wasn't it?